Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is titled, Success Story. Turned our dead bedroom around and we're both happier now. Background. My wife and I are both mid-30s, with myself being the HL husband and her the LL wife. She's a doctor and I own a couple small businesses. We also have 2 young children. We've been married for 8 years and 3/4 of that was a DB situation. Prior to that, we dated for 5 years, and we had been friends for 4 years prior to that. Next year, we will have known each other longer than we haven't. While dating, we had a 2-year stretch where we were in an LDR, which means long-distance relationship. The intercourse was always great, though vanilla, because neither of us considered kink at all at the time. When we were dating, and the LDR portion had us ducking constantly because we only saw each other every other week at best. During residency, she was working 70 to 80 hours a week. My businesses kept me very busy during the day, and at night, I played a lot of MMO-type games. Obviously not positive environmental factors. During this time, we had more duty intercourse than not. Then along came our first kid and our stress levels skyrocketed. Our already struggling intimate life took another hit, and my nights of gaming typically ended with me watching adult videos, using my hand, and falling asleep next to my wife. In my head, I was angry because she was always sleeping and never in the mood. Sure, she worked, but so did I, and I still wanted to duck, but she doesn't? I mulled this over in my head constantly, and it made me angrier and angrier. We both thought about leaving, though never vocalized it. We discussed it recently while going over how things have improved and what we can continue to work on, but never did. In a way, I think our first kid helped us, as she was a reason to stay, at least in the short term. Residency ends, she gets a job, we move, and our family suffers unexpected losses, duct cancer. As we're adjusting to our new lives and the constant curveballs, we have the talk about libidos being mismatched. I use the phrase, sexually incompatible, and wish I never did, because as I would learn in a couple years, we aren't incompatible at all. Things improve for a few weeks, but it's still a fair bit of duty intercourse before we're back to where we were before the talk. In my head, I'm thinking, this isn't going to change. Start thinking of an exit plan. Life goes on and our relationship is basically stagnant. So, I start asking questions. What turns her on? Is she still attracted to me? Does she even want intercourse? She mentions that she wants to be romanced. Here's another moment I regret. I tell her she shouldn't have gotten married if she needs to be romanced every time intercourse happens. Before you downvote and call me in butthole, I know. I ducked up in a big way and was in butthole about it. That concluded that talk, and we made no progress, and I accept the blame entirely for that. A few weeks go by, and as I'm replaying the discussion in my head, I decide to take the initiative and romance her. Took a day off from work, cleaned the house, cooked dinner, put flowers on the table, put wine in the fridge, and managed our kid. She gets home and I tell her everything for the evening is basically taken care of, so she should go take a bath and relax. Afterward, we head downstairs, and I give her a full-body massage. It wasn't one of those ruse massages either, where after 32 seconds of generic rubbing, the hands focus solely on the erogenous zones. So now she's completely relaxed and romanced, so I should get sex, right? Nope, she fell asleep. I lay there, angry and resentful like so many nights in the past. It was around this time that I found this subreddit and read a ton. Initially, the posts here angered me because I could see myself in them. However, I realized that reading this sub constantly was toxic. I was internalizing all of the anger here, so I dialed back my visiting frequency but continued to lurk. We continue to go through the motions, and she mentions she thinks it's time to have a second kid. This was a point of contention because after the first one, I didn't want another. The first was just so much work and I didn't want to go through that again. We make a deal in the hopes that it'll help our intercourse life. If she wanted me to finish inside her, she had to blow me first, after which the second round went inside her. It was a glorious 2 months, but apparently we are very good at making babies. Once she's pregnant, I have no desire to have intercourse with her because I'm weird like that. A couple months after our second was born, he's almost 2 now, we have the talk again. I tell her that I've tried doing the thing she wants to put her in the mood and that doesn't work. That the only time I can recall in recent memory that she was genuinely into intercourse was when we were trying to conceive. She broke down and said she doesn't have any excuses and everything I've said is valid. She decides to seek therapy and I decide to double down and figure out what I can or need to do to help her and by extension, us. A few months of therapy help her a bit and she get off her SSRI, which causes her libido to bounce back a little bit. I tell her I'm willing to go to couples therapy if she thinks it will help, but she insists that she's the one that needs work, not me, us. The duty sex is further lessened, and we start having fun in the bedroom again, albeit on a less frequent schedule than I would have liked. I remind myself constantly that we're looking for progress and we're moving in the right direction. So, she's spending time and effort to improve herself and I get the thought that I should do the same. I start asking myself how I can be a better partner for her and notice that she's constantly crunched for time. So, I start taking things off her plate at home. Most of the domestic duties are now mine and when I don't have the time, I hire someone to take care of whatever needs done. Initially, there wasn't a change in our sex life, and I got upset about it. Here I was doing all this work and I wasn't getting what I wanted. I later learned this is considered a covert contract, and was unfair to her because that agreement was only in my head, and she wasn't even aware of it. Back to the drawing board. By this time, we're having sex once every 2 weeks or so. She knows I could have it morning, noon, and night. Going back to that talk when she said she wanted to be romanced, I decided to try dating her again. Saying affectionate things like how nice she looks, touching her lightly in non-sexual ways, grabbing her butt in passing, etc. Basically, trying to be sweet, cute. She responds and feels desired again and we start having a little more sex. After some time, I stop having to consciously think about doing or saying nice things, they just happen. We grew closer as husband and wife and rebalance how much time we spend wearing those hats versus being mom and dad. Today, we're still having to schedule sex because, well, kids. It's not uncommon for us to say, hey, we should have sex tonight, when we're getting ready in the morning. That actually works for us because then we work on getting everything squared away as quickly as we can in the evening so we can enjoy our time together without feeling rushed or otherwise pressured. The sex has been phenomenal as a result. We're very much in love with each other again and the intimacy is at an all-time high. Looking back on it, I'm glad I stayed and was persistent because she genuinely wanted to change not just for me but for herself too. I think this was why we were successful. I also credit my willingness to look at myself and ask what I can do to improve the situation and not just dwell on it. The negativity is like a savings account with a 1980s interest rate. It just keeps building and you aren't even aware of it. Sorry, this turned out so long. I hope this doesn't come across as bragging because that's not the intent. From what I've seen lurking here for a while is that success stories are rare, and I don't know if it's because people aren't very successful at turning it around or if they just don't bother to come back when things get better. In either event, I wanted to put our story out there and say there can be hope yet. The next one is titled, Update 1. Middle-aged man yells at the clouds because there's no one else he can talk to. I know many of you have it worse than I do, but I need to get this off my chest. We're still in the process of recovering from a DB, but I'm frustrated. We last had sex a week ago and it was more duty sex than not. She went straight to doggy, presumably because she knows it gets me off the fastest. In fact, the last time I felt like it wasn't duty sex was closer to 3 weeks ago, and even then, she was intoxicated at the time, so I don't know if that was her or if it was the intoxicant ducking me enthusiastically. The last week has been a goose egg due to travel and period week, though she blew me 3 times, once before her trip and twice after to manage the physical need. problem is I feel zero connection to her right now as a result of not having good sex recently, routinely. Absolutely none. I have no desire to do any more than the bare minimum and certainly not going to go out of my way to make her life easier or better in this state of mind, which isn't healthy. I know that's the resentment and anger talking, but it is what it is. I can't go to one of my favorite subs, Sex Over 30, today because I can't stand to see all the other happy posters while I'm feeling ugly, rejected, defective, unwanted, sad, and broken. I know if I go there, I'll just get sadder and angrier. Part of what set this off was she was being playful during the day yesterday and mentioned that she was hardly bleeding, so in my head, she was building me up for sex. Shortly after 2100, after we had watched some TV, she asks if she's a bad person to just want to go to sleep. I was short with her, got up, and went back to my office where I played video games for an hour and a half to distract me. Part of me wants to regress and throw in the towel. Go back to a truly dead bedroom, have adult videos as my primary release, my hand and the pixels never turn me down, late night gaming, and treating her like a roommate. Unfortunately, I know I had developed an addiction to adult videos, ironically as a result of the DB. So it's basically self-harm to go back. But I'm feeling so beaten down right now that it's an option I'm considering, which I think is sickening and indicative of what a bad place I'm currently in. I'm not proud to say it, but I caught myself about to take my anger and resentment out on my 5-year-old this morning. She misplaced something trivial, and I started in on her, saying how we had talked about how important it is not to lose things and how disappointed I was in her. She looked at me like I had slapped her, and I realized I was being a monster. I stopped myself and apologized profusely. I'm so sorry, this isn't your fault. I'm being mean and a jerk to you, is what I said to her. Like a 5-year-old who thinks the world revolves around her daddy, she forgave me immediately and asked me if I was okay. I don't know, honey, was the best I could muster. I hate this day. I hate this moment. I hate the not knowing if she's really trying and still into me or if she's just doing what she has to keep me around because I'm a good father and it's convenient for her. The next one is titled, Update 2, Update to Our Fixed Bedroom. Since my last post, we have continued to make progress fixing our bedroom, which has in turn improved our marriage. We've incorporated some new tools and made some changes to further improve, and at the request of a few fellow DB subscribers, I finally decided to post an update. Previously, I have refrained from posting because I don't want to seem like I'm gloating. There's so much pain here already, I don't want to add to it accidentally. I decided to reword my post to be more emotionally neutral as a result. Also, this is not a guide to fixing a DB. Think of this as a recounting of what one couple did in their specific situation in the hopes that inspiration will help another. We started tracking our sexual activity. There are quite a few apps available, but we found an Excel template in our Sex Over 30 and have been using that. It's been useful in tracking not only frequency but also satisfaction. If either of us noticed a downward trend in either, it became a conversation topic. Having a bedrock of open communication was so crucial. My wife started exercising in order to vent her stress from work before coming home. As a result, when she came home, she was in a better mood, able to enjoy her family, and settle into the evening either more receptive to my initiation or initiating herself. The exercise also helped her get into better shape. She's lost 50 pounds between exercise and diet change, which helped address her body image issue, which was preventing her from enjoying sex or feeling sexy enough to initiate. This enabled her to be more daring, risque and flirtatious through the day, so now she'll engage in mild sexting with me. We have found that when she thinks more about sex, she wants it more often. That seems intuitive, but it was an aha moment for us. Speaking of thinking more about sex, we installed and use Kindu. It's kind of like Mojo Upgrade in app form and was developed by physicians who were shocked at the lack of sexual education within their own ranks. But using it daily, even if it's just to answer a couple questions, keeps us thinking about sex and also gives us ideas for things we match on. I make a concerted effort to speak her primary love language, acts of service. She feels loved when she can walk into a clean house and enjoy a home-cooked meal, so I provide that as often as I can, typically every day. She feels loved when she sees me playing with the kids and everyone is happy. She feels loved when she doesn't have to do laundry. Can't say I fault her for this one. But these are examples of me serving and her seeing it. There are plenty of smaller, nearly invisible acts of service that I perform, such as plugging the switch in because she forgot to, and I know she'll want to play it the next day but the battery's nearly dead, for her, but that's just because I love the crap out of her. Concurrently, she started speaking more of my love language, touch, and started touching me more throughout the day and evening. Hugs, gropes, ear nibbles, etc. Rejection changed. We both understood that she's a person with reactive desire, so we agreed that if I initiated, she would give it an honest chance of getting in the mood rather than saying, "I'm not in the mood." According to our stats, over 90% of the time, she got in the mood. And the few remaining times when she couldn't get into it, there was an external factor to blame. We have a free use agreement of sorts. For those unfamiliar, free use is a term where a partner has blanket consent to initiate whenever and however they wish. With that in mind, we agreed that if either of us was in the mood, but the other was asleep, we had consent to initiate. For me, I would apply lube and slowly put it inside. This is her preferred method because anything less irritates her, while this is direct enough to arouse her. She, OTOH, would get me erect and mount me if I was the one asleep. Of course, upon waking, we could stop, but in the last year that we've operated under this arrangement, neither of us has. Sex this way was rarely starfish sex either. Once awake, we were having enjoyable, half-conscious sex. No pressure to finish quickly or feeling like using the other as a masturbation tool. I initiate about 75% of the time. I had to clear the mental hurdle that there's nothing wrong with being reactive desire, and her not being spontaneous desire like me wasn't an indication that she didn't desire me. She just needed to be nudged to think about it because that's the way she is. Being upset about it would be like being upset about her height. We have made significant progress over the last year. Our bedroom is healthy and alive by every metric we track, and we both strive to maintain and improve our bedroom because we both understand the role it plays in our relationship. My wife no longer considers sex to be something she needs to do for my sake, but rather sees it the way I do, a celebration of us. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.